Well, hello, guys. This is Katie with Vintage and Vinyl, and I have a special guest today on my channel, and I'm so excited to have Jack back from Jack's TRAX'S Records. He is absolutely amazing. He's so knowledgeable on vinyl, and today we are going to bring you a really fun live stream talking about all the vintage vinyl things that you might want for someone just getting into the vinyl hobby. These will all be really good Christmas gifts for yourself or for someone you know that wants to get into the whole vinyl experience. So Jack, welcome to you. Thank you so much for being part of the stream.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
It is going to be fantastic. I'm really, really looking forward to this, Jack.
Okay, so should we I should start by saying hi, I'm Jack. I have a channel called Jack's TRAX'S Records where I talk about classic rock, prog rock, jazz, vinyl. And yeah, so today we're going to be showing or talking about some gear, some records that we would recommend for Christmas or the holidays coming up. So should we start with our turntable recommendations?
Sure. And before we get started with that, I do want to mention that Jack has an amazing channel, as I talked about already. But if you are not subscribed to Jack, please, please, please go subscribe to him. He is amazing. I've linked him down below, and he is trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So wouldn't it be cool, guys, if we could get Jack to 1,000 subscribers during this stream?
That would be awesome.
Do it. So send everybody the link to this stream. And of course, you can ask questions in the chat as we go along if you have any questions. And I'm so glad you're here. And we'll say hello to a couple of people. I see Edwards tuning in. So welcome, Edwards. Susie is here. Proud American Delbert is tuning in. And Doo-Wop Bob is here. So welcome, Bob. Bob comes from my vinyl chat that I attend on Saturday nights. Although I've been missing a little bit of that lately. I've been so busy. But I'll be glad to get back to Johnny's chat on Saturday. So welcome to you guys. Oh, thank you, Bob. He says he's subscribed. So we've got some people subscribed to Jack, which is fantastic. And also, Jack and I did another live stream a few months ago on getting started into vinyl, some things you might need. And if you're interested in that, I will link that down below after the stream ends. So you guys can go check that out as a really good reference for what we're going to talk about today. So kind of pair nicely with this video. So Jack, why don't we get started and talk about some of the turntables that you need or you might want when you're getting started into vinyl. Because obviously you need a turntable, some speakers, a preamp, and a receiver to get listening to some records.
Yeah, so that is that's a great place to start. I mean, if we're talking the real basics here, I guess a good thing to start with is the ideal vinyl setup is a turntable, obviously. We're going to need some speakers, maybe a receiver and a preamp, but if your speakers are active, which should be like in the description where you're buying them from or something like that, you'll not need a receiver or a preamp, which is always good to save some money because it is, as Katie can probably agree, a pretty expensive hobby.
It is. So my setup actually has powered speakers or active speakers, as Jack said, one and the same term for that. And then I have a turntable with a built-in preamp, so I don't need any of the extra things. And that is a good place to start when you get into vinyl, because you can save a little bit of money on the setup and then spend more money on records and other accessories as you go along. But it is something that you can always upgrade down the road when you get into vinyl more. And with turntables, my theory is if you invest in a really good turntable from the get-go, you can kind of upgrade as you get more into it, and it saves you more money in the long run. So I would personally, and Jack would probably agree with me, I would not buy something super cheap, super flimsy that you just can't upgrade, because if you really get into vinyl, you're going to want to be able to change like the cartridge out later and maybe some other things as you go along.
Yeah, so personally with me, I have 5 different turntables from all the way when I started, and my newest one, which is my main turntable, and I'll actually show that now. That's a great segue. So the turntable that I personally use is the Fluance Rt85, and you can see that guy right here. That is an incredible turntable, and I'm absolutely loving it. It comes stock with a Ortofon 2M Blue, which is just an incredible cartridge, and I'm really digging the sound of that. An acrylic platter, for those of you that don't know what that means, it's basically just like kind of like a clearish almost platter, and you will not need an actual turntable mat when you're doing that, which it's one less thing to worry about, which is always a good thing when you're in this hobby. The tone arm is amazing, and it comes in this awesome bamboo finish, which I'm absolutely loving. Katie, don't you also have a Fluance?
Yes, I have a Fluance Rt85. When I bought mine, they did not make the Rt85 yet. So I might have to upgrade at some point because the Rt85 is pretty sweet. And that Ortofon 2 in blue cartridge is amazing because that alone is about $200. So you're getting that standard on a record player. And really what Fluance has done, which I think is amazing, is that they've put out a lot of turntables that carry a lot of high-end features that you don't typically see at that price point. So when I was shopping for turntables, I started out with the Crosby, everybody did, and then moved on. And I was so glad I invested in Fluance because they're just a really well-made turntable. They have a lot of good features that allow you to upgrade. So they've got a counterweight on the back. So if you want to change the cartridge later on, you can do that as well. I just love Fluance, and they're beautifully made. I mean, they're heavy, they're solid. Jack has the bamboo. I have the not the piano black, but they make like a mahogany, and that's the one I have.
The walnut?
Yeah, the walnut. Thank you. Yeah, and it's amazing. And I love that it has an S-shaped tone arm. That was really important to me. But of course, all of those more specific details can be overwhelming when you're getting into vinyl. You could go down a whole rabbit hole with that. But I like the S-shape versus the straight tone arm. I think it hugs that groove a little bit better.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another accessory for a turntable is it seems pretty obvious to put, if you're a turntable manufacturer or a business, to put a dial to put like 33 RPM or 45 RPM,
Yep.
whether you're going to do that. And particularly the Project Debut Carbon, which was like kind of my second choice when I was looking for a new turntable, does not have that. And to be honest, that was probably the main deciding factor for me, because I don't know about you, but I am so lazy and I'm not trying to flip the belt on the different.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Just play a 45. That's only going to last you 3 minutes. It's probably going to take me longer to get my hands on the belt and flip it than it is to actually play the 45. So yeah, so having that dial there is definitely an awesome feature that I'm glad they included on the Rt85. It was a little bit more expensive because of that Ortofon 2M blue. But yeah, it's totally worth it because that cartridge alone, like you said, is what, $250? That's half of the cost of the turntable. And that does not mean that the turntable is low quality besides the cartridge. They're beautifully crafted turntables, like you said. So
they're very heavy, and they have nice isolation feet. They have a dust cover, which I love. And like Jack was pointing out, being able to change between record speeds with a dial is so much easier than a belt. Now you can get a belt-driven turntable, which I personally like. They're a little bit quieter because you don't have the hum of the motor. Or you can get a direct drive, which has the motor. So that's totally up to you which one you want to pick out. But with the Fluance, I really like the belt driven. I like that I don't have to change the belt. Now, there is something to consider if you're collecting a lot of 78. That is a whole nother type of turntable you're going to have to look for, is a turntable that does 78s. And I don't think they're too popular anymore, but I do know some collectors that love like early blues and jazz and that kind of stuff, and they're looking for 78. So you will need to get a turntable that does 78 if you're interested in that. The Fluance and most of the ones we'll be talking about today do play the standard 33 RPM and 45, which is basically what you're going to find when you're vinyl shopping, unless you're getting into 78, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I know a lot of people aren't particularly collecting 78 RPM records because, first of all, they're very hard to find. I mean, Katie can probably agree, 80% of the record stores that I walk into don't carry 78.
No.
I mean, it's not a thing that a lot of people still have, number one, that they're willing to sell. And number two, they're not popular and they're not going to sell. So a lot of record stores do not have 78. And that's a great point. But yeah, should we get into the different turntables you can consider.
Sure. And Sheila, after we talk about turntables, we will get talking about what you need to connect everything up and some of the speakers. So stay tuned for that. But that is a very good question. So I do see your question.
I'll come
Sheila.
back to that.
Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
I have a lot of thoughts on that one.
Okay, so we've talked about the Fluance. We like the RT85. Now that's about $500. Is that right, Jack?
That is correct. Yeah. So the RT85 stock, everything on it is $500.
Okay, great. And then we talked about a little bit about the Project Debut Carbon, but why don't you tell us about that? It's a belt-driven turntable, and it's about $449.
Yeah. So the Project Debut Carbon, there's two different models. There's one called the Evo, which is higher in price, and the cartridge I would say is a lot better than the one on the Project DC. And the Project Debut Carbon DC comes with an Ortofon 2M Red, which you have, and it is an amazing cartridge.
Yeah, great cartridge.
The one on the Evo is an Okino, something like that. And I've heard that sounds amazing. Considerably, a couple of people are talking about it. A couple of people consider that a little bit better than actually the 2M Blue, because the 2M Blue is a very bright cartridge, and the one on the Evo is a little bit heavier in the bass and is a little bit more balanced than the 2M Blue. But don't get me wrong, the 2M Blue is completely fantastic, and I'm now seeing that comment.
Yay! All right, folks, we did it. We got Jack to 1,000. That is amazing. Thank you, guys. I knew we could do it. Jack is amazing. He's so knowledgeable, as you can tell here. And so thank you so much, Jack. That's awesome.
I'm so excited. There's no better platform than to do it on here. But yeah, so the Project Debut Carbon DC has the Ortofon 2M Red, which is a great cartridge. I've heard that the finishes on it are basically a fingerprint magnet. I mean, you touch this thing and there's fingerprints all over it. So again, another deciding factor, and the main deciding factor why I didn't get it is because of the fact that you do have to manually switch the belt, which is definitely a downside for me. But that shouldn't discourage you from getting it if you get a good deal on it. And if you're buying it used, that's a whole different topic that we'll get into after we're discussing the new turntables.
Sure. And this turntable has a carbon fiber tone arm, which is a pretty big deal. And you can go down a rabbit hole with all of the technical things, especially if you're new. It can definitely be overwhelming. You're like, oh my gosh, there's different types of tone arms. I just thought I needed a tone arm, to make the whole thing work. But carbon fiber is pretty amazing. So that is one really good deciding factor for that turntable. If you really want a carbon fiber tone arm for the price, that is incredible, because you don't find carbon fiber tone arms at that price point on turntables normally. So that was a big deal when it came out.
Yeah, and I think that was the main reason I was really considering it, is because of that tone arm, which is, I mean, like you said, amazing that they can produce that for the price that it's made at.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then we'll talk about the Audio Technica. Now, there's two versions of this. The one that I'm most familiar with is the LP120, which is about $299. That is a direct drive turntable. And I believe, does that one play 78s too?
Yes, it does. So
okay.
That is the only one on this list that we are talking about that plays 78s. When you're playing 78s, if you are interested in it, you'll need a totally different stylus because 78s are up and down grooves, and the regular records are like side to side. So you're gonna need a different stylus, and you're gonna damage your needle and your actual 78 if you're playing those on a regular player. So that's another important.
And you should change that every time you do a 78, and that's a whole nother video that maybe Jack and I can do one day. I don't know many people that do 78s, but I have heard a few people from my community in the vintage side of things that had inherited some 78s and they were trying to figure out how to play them. So maybe we'll do a special video on that. But if you are interested in 78s, that turntable does include that. Now, that one's direct drive. So direct drives are a little bit different than belt driven. We touched on that earlier, but direct drives, I think, are a little bit noisy because they have a motor that actually makes the whole thing run versus a belt. And Jack can maybe explain that a little bit more, but I like the quieter belts.
Yeah, and going back to the 78 thing really quickly, the closest thing that we've done to a video about that is we did a whole video about Edison diamond discs.
Yeah.
So you can watch that. I'm sure Katie will leave that in the description after this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's probably the closest thing to a 78 that I have in my collection. Katie was generous enough to ship that one to me. But yeah, so just wanted to touch a little bit on that. But yeah, so belt driven versus direct driven. It's so controversial because everyone has their own so many opinions about it. Personally, I like belt-driven turntables better. And I think the only reason that you could make the argument for direct-driven turntables is because, and you can hear my dog in the background, is because if you're like a DJ, you're obviously not going to be able to like scratch and like do all that cool like DJ stuff if you have a belt-driven turntable. And that's the one I have up there, that silver one, and the StreamYard camera is backwards, so it's hard to point to things in the background. But yeah, I have a direct driven up there on top of my shelf, and I still use that very regularly. So yeah, that's just another thought about that.
Yeah, and that's things that you will see when you're shopping for record players, is they will tell you this is direct driven, this is belt driven. And in the vinyl community, you can search umpteen videos on the topic, and everyone has their opinions. And just anything in vinyl, pretty much people say, no, this sounds better. Oh, that's better. I hate this cartridge. I like that cartridge. And it's just a whole rabbit hole. Yeah. But you have to find what you like and do some research and figure out, okay, this is what I need, and this is what I'm primarily doing with vinyl, and then shop from there and really decide.
Yeah. So the Audio-Technica LP 120 is a great option. What did you say that one was coming at in the price?
It was $299.
Okay, yeah. So that's a great deal. That's $300 for an awesome turntable. I mean, it has a start-stop feature. I'm not too sure of the cartridge that comes on that one, but I'm sure
either.
I think it is just a standard Audio-Technica standard cartridge, which comes with the LP60 as well.
Yeah, the Audio-Technica 1895E was the one that came, the green cartridge. That's the one that came standard on my Fluance, and then I upgraded to the red, which is a great cartridge.
So that is actually the same one, the green one. That's the one that comes on the LP120. So I'm glad we got that covered. So that's a great turntable if you're looking for $300 range. Totally recommend that one.
And it's one that I find that a lot of people in the vinyl community has started with, and they talk about it, and they've loved it and loved it and loved it, and then they upgraded. So I feel like that's a very solid turntable and a good price point. Personally, for me, like I talked about earlier, I would stay away from your $50 turntables. I think that they're kind of cheaply made. They're not going to last, and they're not going to sound good. You don't have to have a very expensive setup to enjoy vinyl, but if you have a really cheap setup, like when I had the Crosby, and I'm not bashing anyone that has a Crosby, but I found that because it had built-in speakers, it kind of sounded like a tin can rolling around. And if you're getting into vinyl and you're like, I've heard people say that this is the most amazing true form of music to listen to, and it's so warm and dynamic. And then you get a cheap turntable with built-in speakers, and you're like, well, I don't understand why people in this hobby say it sounds so good. Well, it's probably because you don't have a very good, at least basic turntable with a decent pair of speakers, because you're hearing this kind of cheap sound. And so I do think that investing a little bit more right out of the gate is really good.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately discourages a lot of people out of the collecting hobby, because again, they're buying these Crosby Cruisers for $30 from Target. They're playing it and they're like, this sucks. So much work, so much money. Doesn't even sound that good. Out the window. Yeah. So, I mean, again, that is definitely something that I feel like should be more widely available. That these turntables are not made to last, that they don't sound good. They're not the true vinyl experience. But again, it's hard to make an argument for it because it's like me and you, we both started on a Crosby. So yeah. We wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Crosby's. So
that's true.
It's hard to bash them because we wouldn't be here talking to people on YouTube about records if it weren't for Crosby's at Target.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly. I have to give credit to the Crosleys because, they did a lot for the record industry. They created kind of this whole new record boom because they're everywhere. You go into a Target, you go into a Walmart, you go into I can't think of the Urban Outfitters has them, they're there. And then they have all of the popular new records that people are, wanting, even Barnes and Noble. And so a lot of times people go in there and they'll get started in the vinyl because of Crosley and because they can buy a Crosley Cruiser and they can buy a couple of records right there on the shelf and go home with them. And so I have to say, Crosley's done a lot for the record industry. So I'm by no means bashing them. I would just personally suggest as a person, if I could go back to when I first bought my first turntable, if I knew more than I know now, I mean, if I knew, you guys know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is if I knew what I know now,
Yeah.
I would then tell myself then, okay, don't waste your money on an all-in-one. Get something that's like the Fluance that's going to last and is really going to be a good turntable. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
But it taught me a lot. So, and here I am, and I'm probably 300 records in now.
So, did we talk about the 60X yet?
No, we have not talked about the LP60X.
So besides the Crosley, I would consider the LP60X my first real turntable. And I think that it's probably the cheapest decent turntable that you can buy on the market. I think that one's coming at what, $130?
Yeah, $130.
So that's the first one that I got. I got this set with PreSonus Aries speakers, which we'll talk about later because I'm recommending those. And that was my vinyl system for about a year and a half, and I loved it. It's an automatic turntable, which is the only one of that feature on this list. And when you just push a button, the needle rises up, goes over, and places it down on the record, which some people would argue that takes the excitement and the vibe out of vinyl. But I think it's great for a new collector because if you're not knowing how to do the Q arm or whatever.
Yep, and line it up and get it just perfectly on that lead-in groove. It's great.
I mean, and you're literally playing a record with quite literally a push of a button. So yeah, I think that's a great feature for new collectors. And it sounds great. I mean, my buddy still has one, and we just made a video. It's me and my buddy Tag. He has one of those, and he loves it. And I go over to his house, and it sounds fine.
Yeah, that's the one my brother got. He asked me, he just started getting into vinyl a little bit. And he said, what turntable should I get? And I gave him a list. And I said, this one's really budget friendly. And he picked that one out. And he's got a pair of clip speakers like I do. And man, it sounds good.
And another one that we didn't write down, but I would also like to recommend is the LP3, which is basically a audio is a 60, but has a counterweight.
Oh, that's nice.
And it has a counterweight, has a much better cartridge on it. You can actually replace the cartridge on the LP3. Another downside about the LP60 is you can't replace the cartridge. It's stuck in the tone arm, which is a downside.
And the tone arm on that turntable is just a little bit thin for my taste. Tad fancy, but it's not bad for your first turntable. It really is a nice bang for your buck.
And I think the LP3 goes about $200. And if you have the extra cash to spend on the LP3 rather than the LP60, I would totally recommend it because you can replace the cartridge. Comes with an awesome bass. Comes with a rubber mat. Comes with, of course, a counterweight. So heavy, much heavier. The LP60 is essentially a hunk of plastic. It's not metal or anything, which is fine. I mean, you're not going to need that for your first turntable, but if you do have the extra cash, I would recommend getting the LP3. Yeah.
And I want to go back to the Fluance just for a second, since you mentioned that other turntable, the LP3. Fluance does make a range of turntables. So we did talk about the Rt85, which is 500, and I think mine was 400 or 350, something like that. They do make an Rt81, which is more of their standard model, and I believe it's $199. So they do make some more standard versions of the Fluance with that really nice wood finish and heavy features. So definitely look into their range of turntables. A lot of these companies will put out several ranges so you can kind of see what one works for you.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to the next one?
Absolutely. So I've got the U-turn orbit belt turntable, which is the acrylic platter one. The one thing with U-turn is you can add features and upgrade your turntable, so they make it a little bit more customizable, which is kind of cool. The acrylic one is going with the acrylic platter is $299. If you get just their basic belt-driven model, it's $199. Now, the U-turn does not come standard with a Q lever, which I just find a little bit nuts, but you can add that on extra for, I want to say like $50. I was looking at them. You have to add certain features to their turntables, which are interesting.
Yeah, that's totally stupid in my opinion. I mean, if you're just getting into vinyl and you need to buy a Q lever, I mean, that's ridiculous. And I actually didn't know that before you told me about that. And I've never shopped on U-turn. I know the main thing about them is all of their color options, which a lot of people are very excited about. But I mean, to have to buy a Q lever for $50 is ridiculus to me.
I could be wrong on that exact price, but I had looked it up before, and I remember just thinking, man, that's crazy, because Q levers, should be pretty standard to me on any record player, But the nice thing about a U-turn is, like Jack said, they come in every color under the sun: red, blue, yellow, white. You can get a wood finish if you want. You can upgrade to an acrylic platter. You can get, there's a million other options you can do with U-turn. So if you really want to customize your setup, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's all the turntables I have on my list. How about you, Jack?
Yeah, so there's one more I wanted to talk about that I don't know much about, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it's the Riga Planner 1. And this is, I would say, another option to say the Fluance Rt85 or the Rt82. It's basically the same thing, but just another option if you're looking to get into deeper choices. That's another great one to throw out if we're talking about the lower end Fluance.
That's wonderful, Jack. So that's something I will link to down below. So in the description box, I'll go back and link all of the turntables and all of the gear that we talk about today. That way it's easy for you guys to shop. You can just click on the links and go there. So I'll do that after the stream ends. So I saw that question earlier, so I'll go back up and pull it up so we can talk a little bit about it. And then speakers, because that's another thing that you're going to need when you get into vinyl, is you need something to listen to. And Sheila's asking if you can connect a turntable to a Bose audio system. So let's talk a little bit about speakers.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about with Sheila's question is, I just want to ask her, is that a wireless system? Because I have a story about that. If that's a wireless system, I would love to hear about that, and we'll get back to that after we're done with speakers.
Absolutely. So you need speakers. Speakers can be very complicated, and I honestly don't know a ton about the technical aspects of speakers. I'm still learning on that, but so I am by no means an expert. But one of the speakers I really like for a good basic setup, and these are the speakers I had before I got my clip speakers, is I bought a pair of Bluetooth, and that's the nice thing, is a lot of these speakers that are powered, they're bookshelves, they're small, they're made for like smaller spaces. We're not talking floor models here or anything yet, but those basic speakers that you can buy with built-in Bluetooth allow you to also stream from your phone if you want to. So that is something to consider with buying speakers. If you get some that have a Bluetooth option, it will give you a little bit more freedom. So if you don't want to play records, say you're having a party or you have people over, you want to hear something on a radio station, you can play that through the speakers. So the first pair of speakers I had was the Best Buy, I believe Insignia is their brand, and it was a pair of Insignia speakers. They had wood cabinets with removable grills. They had built-in Bluetooth, and they were powered speakers. They were $99 on sale for $50, and they regularly have them on sale. So I had those paired with my Fluance for a long time before I got a really good deal on some clips. So I have to say, for a good a basic speaker, now these are powered, so you don't need a receiver with these. They'll hook up to your turntable as a built-in preamp. They're really nice for the price and for the value. And then, of course, you can upgrade and get into different types of speakers and the floor models and all kinds of things. Now, what I currently have is the Klipsch, and I love Klipsch. They make a wide variety of speakers. They have sales all the time on their website. I was lucky to buy them used, so I got a super good deal on a subwoofer and two speakers. It was all in $100, which is fabulous if you know Klipsch, but they do make different models. So I have the reference series. You can go and get $100, $149 reference series speakers, or you can go all the way up to like $900 in their range. So definitely do some shopping around on that.
Yeah. So, like you said about the Bluetooth, I'm going to go back to that really quickly. It is okay to listen to digital music.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times with this, I have to listen to vinyl. This is the only way I'm listening to music. Half of the stuff, I would probably say 75% of the stuff that I listen to is digital music, because if I'm in the car, if I'm at school, whatever, I don't have my stereo system with me. And it's okay to listen to digital music. I mean, people definitely get very like self-conscious about that. So that's I mean, before I buy a lot of my records, I listen to them on Apple Music or Spotify to make sure I like it enough to buy it on vinyl. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff I do is on Apple Music, and I think it is really cool because I just bought a Bluetooth adapter to go into my stereo. So that sounds awesome. And I love my speakers and I love my receiver and all that. So I think I bought it for $15. Just you connect a aux cord, an in and out, and then it connects right to your phone, and you can play all that stuff through there, and that works awesome.
And I love streaming. Like I love my vinyl very much, but one of the things that I love is having a Sirius XM subscription. I'm not sponsored by them, but I love that it's now changed. It was 50s on 5. They're now 50s Gold. And they have different programs that you can listen to. And what's really cool about 50s on 5, well, 50s Gold now, is they have all of these older musicians that are getting up there in years, but they come on and they have like an hour radio program. And Pat Boone is one of them. And he shares all these amazing stories from his time meeting Fats Domino and Chuck Berry and how he got to play with all. So, I mean, I love my Bluetooth for that reason, because my Klipsch has Bluetooth too. And then when those programs come on and I want to listen to that, it's really fantastic. And you can do that with any of the Sirius stations. They have all kinds of special live concerts and programs. So it's not just vinyl. Now, vinyl's pretty awesome and it is pretty amazing to listen to. But I do listen to digital music sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like listening to even YouTube live streams. What am I using right now? I'm using my monitor speakers that I got with my LP60. That's what I'm using right now. So yeah, that's a great point. And the Klipsch are awesome. I've heard them before at a store, and they sound fantastic.
They do. So what speakers do you have, Jack?
So I don't know if you can see above my name tag there. You can see a little bit of it. I do want to see if you can see it on this camera. You might not be able to. I just positioned it to see my turntable. Yeah, you can't see it in that.
No.
But I have Jamo floor standing speakers, and I got them on sale on Crutchfield, I want to say, is the website that I bought them on. They have sales all the time, like you said. And yeah, I bought those speakers for $300, I think, and they sound awesome. They can go very loud, and I get a lot of complaints from my parents upstairs about my.
Oh, I wonder about my neighbors, because I have a subwoofer now. And the other day I was listening to some Bo Diddley, and that Bo Diddley beats heavy on bass.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure that my neighbor downstairs was like, what the heck is going on? Shut up.
Yeah. So these speakers can go very loud. But yes, I do love them. They sound awesome. And if you are in the market for some floor standing speakers, Jamo would be an awesome recommendation because they're not expensive floor standing speakers. I mean, you can elaborate on this. Floor standing speakers cost a lot of money.
They
And
do.
for me to get these for $300 is an amazing deal. So I'm glad I could get my hands on this.
It is. And the speaker, it really depends on your space too.
Mhm.
If you live in a smaller apartment like I do, bookshelf speakers just seem to be the way to go because one, I didn't have room for floor standing speakers, and two, the room really didn't need it. But if you have a larger room or you've got the space and you want to have floor standing speakers, that is fantastic. So just kind of think about your space as well, where you might be putting your setup and get that all positioned just so.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other ones that I do want to talk about are the ones that I'm using to play this live stream right now. These are my PreSonus Aries speakers that came with my Audio Technica LP60X, and I use these for my monitor now, and they sound awesome. So that's another one that I'm really into right now.
So Kurt is asking a great question. He's saying, you have two turntables, Jack. What is your primary?
So my primary is this guy right here, the Fluance Rt85, and we talked about it a little earlier. So if you didn't catch that after the stream's over, I would really recommend rewinding and listening to us talk about Fluance because we both have Fluance turntables and we
love Fluance.
So the other one that I have is a Gemini turntable, and I believe it's a 500X. And I'm a huge fan of that one as well. More of a DJ turntable, comes with a scratch needle, and it's a direct drive, so you can do all like the scratch stuff on it, which I personally don't delve into too often.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another great option is to go vintage on turntables. So I know we're talking about speakers now, but to go vintage on turntables is an awesome idea. I mean, you can get Technics. I've had a little bit trouble. I've had a little bit of trouble with Technics in the past.
Yeah. you got kind of, I mean, I don't think the guy burned you on purpose, but it was definitely an interesting experience.
Yes. But I did get the Gemini from a store, and I would say, and I don't feel the same about music gear because I do play guitar, drums, and bass. But I don't think that Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or anything about like anything like that, offer up or whatever, I wouldn't recommend that because you're not getting it guaranteed from a store. So yeah.
And that's the thing with vintage is vintage can sound really amazing. And I love vintage audio gear. It's totally fascinating. My friend Blake, Jamie's husband from Mid-Century Wasted, is really into vintage audio. So if you want to go down that route, you can always message him at The Real Blake Dorman over on Instagram. And I know he will help you because he buys things off of Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace all the time. But he also is a guy that can repair it. So just be aware that if you are buying vintage and you're new to the hobby, you might be in some fields where you might have to repair things. Parts may not be available. You might have to hunt stuff down. So it can be a little bit tricky. And if you're getting into audio and vinyl for the first time, I recommend maybe going with something that's guaranteed, like Jack said, from a store. You know it's going to work unless you know how you can get things repaired and you know what you want. So that's just something to think about with vintage. But vintage is amazing. And I might be getting a Marantz and some vintage speakers soon from Blake. But we'll see how that goes. That will be next year sometime. But I'm hoping so.
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, vintage, buying vintage gear is awesome. And that's what I did. But I would totally recommend getting it from a store. If you can find a store near you, a record store near you that sells used turntables, I would go that route because of the fact that it's guaranteed. You can return it. And I got very lucky when I had a problem on Facebook Marketplace with my turntable. The guy refunded me in 5 minutes, said I could keep the turntable. So I had a good experience, I would say, with the return process and the refund process, but that does not happen all the time. I mean, if you're getting a guy that possibly knows that it's broken, and he can just block your email. I mean, there's nothing you're going to do about it. So I would recommend going to a store. There's a store in Allentown, Pennsylvania called Double Decker Records, which I go to occasionally. I live in Maryland, but if I'm taking a trip down to New Jersey where some family lives, I always make sure to stop there, and they have an awesome used turntable selection. So yeah.
Yeah, and our record store here, where there's several, but Yesterday and Today's Records has an amazing selection of vintage gear and used turntables. And that's actually how I bought my clip speakers, and my subwoofer is the guy is really into high-end audio, and he was selling these. I came in, I said, oh, I'm looking for a subwoofer. We were just talking. He goes, oh, by the way, I have this. And I said, sold. I'll be back the next day to pick it up. So you never know what you're going to find, but definitely go somewhere that's reputable. If you're buying like from a Goodwill, because I know there's people coming in from the vintage community, they're used to seeing all these audio pieces at Goodwill. You got to test them, and sometimes there's no way to in the store. So unless it's like $1, it's kind of hard to take a gamble on that kind of thing, unless you really know vintage audio and you know where you can get it repaired, and that can be expensive too.
I mean, if we're talking repair, sometimes the repair can cost more than getting just a new turntable.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to think about when you're buying vintage.
Yes, that's amazing. Vintage Panasonic is good. Yeah, any of those 70s turntables, a lot of them are really great if you can get them working, for sure.
Yep.
I saw a question I wanted to highlight before we get back into the speakers, as Gabby's asking, who is this super genius? Well, Gabby, if you are not subscribed to Jack over at Jack's TRAX'S Records, I'm sure one of my moderators can put his link in, but he is linked in the description box. So definitely go subscribe to Jack. He is pretty amazing. So let's jump back a little bit to the Bose question, because I know Bose can be a little bit tricky when it comes to turntables sometimes, depending on what model of speakers you have.
Yep. So what was the she said that she has it is a wired with a 5-disc charger added. So I'm not too sure about that, but I did have a turntable that I recently sold. That was my Project S1 Phono, and I actually sold that to get money for the Fluance, which I already showed. But that was actually connected to a Sonos system with this thing. And I think that was an awesome route. I mean, that sounded awesome. You plug it into just an aux cord or RCA, not aux cord, no, RCA cables. So you got RCA cables going into your source, and then you plug the other end straight into the turntable, and you can control how you play it with your phone if you have a Sonos system. I don't know much about Bose. I've never owned a system by them, so I'm guessing you probably could. There's probably some way. If it has an RCA cable, which is the red and white little plugins that you can plug in, there's 100% a way that you can. If there's not, there probably is still a way, but that is an easy route if it has those red and white little plugins there.
Yeah, it has the in and outs. You can do it. And you can also go to Best Buy. I found that they were extremely helpful, the people in the audio section, when I was getting hooked up with my system, because I needed a speaker wire and a subwoofer cable, which I had to go get from Best Buy. And I didn't know a lot about it at the time. I know way more now, but I went in there, and the people that deal in the audio section, they were just like, oh yeah, we know exactly what you need. Here it is. So they're very helpful. So if you go into any audio store, I'll get that right, I promise. Into any audio store, they'll help you too. Like we have House of Sound here, which deals in, they're more high-end stuff, but they also know what you need. So you could go there and say, hey, I have this. Does this work? And then they'll tell you. Okay,
yeah, so
good.
You can definitely hook a turntable up to that.
Absolutely, Sheila. That should be easy.
Yeah, and Proud American, I totally agree. I mean, bigger is not always better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, my little Fluance is my turntable. My little bookshelf speakers, the clips, I mean, they're amazing for the size that they are. I mean, personally, I think they sound fantastic, and I'm happy with them. And that's the thing with sound. It really is kind of it's up to the person that's listening, because you could line 5 people up in front of speakers and everyone would have their opinion and they would all have something different to say. And so it really is what's good for your ears, not what the vinyl community says, not what somebody else thinks. It's all up to you. Are you enjoying it? Are you happy with it? If you are, then fantastic. More power to you.
Yep.
Cheryl's asking you if you have a future career in mind.
Yeah, so it would be great to be a professional musician. Like I said earlier, I play bass, guitar, and drums. So I think I'm pretty decent at it. So if that could be a career in mind, that'd be awesome. If I could do that in my career for a job, that'd be awesome, and not be like working at all. And then another thing that I'd also love to do is be a Jimmy Fallon. Like, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
I watch Jimmy Kimmel's show or his monologue every single morning when I'm making my breakfast. So yeah, I would love to do that. I would love to be a radio show host. I would love to be a producer. Something music related would be preferable. But again, if that isn't the route I take, then so be it.
I definitely could see you being in radio or TV, Jack, or just somebody that loves music and is making music in a band. I think you'd be great at that.
Yeah, I would love that.
Gabby, we talked a little bit about turntables at the beginning and new turntables. So if you're interested in that, go back and rewind the stream. We talked highly about Fluance, Project AB Carbon, Audio Technica, and U-Turn Audio, and a few others. So definitely go check that out if you're looking for new turntables.
Yep. And another thing that would also be good, I'm going to refer back to the last stream that we did, and my Wi-Fi cut out a lot on that one.
Yeah.
Because I got a new computer for my birthday, and I hook it up to the Ethernet. So my connection, I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood, but the connection is a lot better on this stream. But go back to the other stream, because we talk about a ton of do's and don'ts of record collecting, actual record players, like reissues versus original pressings. Like, we really delved into a lot of stuff on that stream. So if you're interested in that, I would go check that one out.
Absolutely. And I'll have that linked in the description box after this video, so you can go check that out as well. Cheryl is asking, have you played on any of your videos, or will you play in the future?
I probably will. I mean, I do have a recording system. I like to think that the TRAX'S Records is really a vinyl related channel, and I do have separate channels. I mean, I have TRAX'S Contest, and I don't know if this is a thing in the vintage community, but we do. A lot of channels will start up contests to get their subscribers up, and they'll like throw in a prize, and you show your favorite Billy Joel album or your favorite drummer, and like it's so much fun. But I personally put a lot less work into those videos because they're not that original. People don't seem to watch them that much, so I started a whole different channel for that. So TRAX'S Contest is something I work on quite regularly as well. But yeah, maybe I will start a TRAX'S guitar channel or something like that.
Oh, that would be cool, Jack. I think people would really like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the contest is not something we particularly do in the vintage community. I mean, we have giveaways and so forth.
Yeah.
But we don't really do the contest. I like the contest, and I really would love to get into doing more contest videos. Some of the contests that come out, because I listen to such older music, it doesn't fit in with the contest rules. So I don't always get a chance to participate in those. But I do like the threads and the contests. They're kind of interesting. But like Jack said, they're not particularly original. I think some of them get a little bit recycled, but they're fun to do.
Yeah.
And Tiger is saying, I really want to be like Jack when I grow up. So we're talking, we talked about speakers. And so why don't we talk a little bit now about accessories and things that you might need when you get into the vinyl hobby?
Yeah. So I have a couple of things here. First thing that I would recommend is record cleaners. You need to clean your records, especially if you're going for used records. You're going to really need a record cleaner, because there's going to be a ton of dust, fingerprints, dirt, all that kind of stuff that you don't want your needle to get attracted to. So personally, I have this guy, which is awesome. This is an adapter to a wet dry vacuum. And if you have one of these, this is an awesome accessory. This is called the Vinyl Vac. And there's a ton of videos on YouTube demonstrating on how to use this thing. They have two little lip brushes right here. This hooks into a wet dry vacuum. There's a hole right here that you put on your turntable that you're cleaning on, and you're just going to want to spin it like that, and this gets a ton of stuff off. You're going to want to wet your record first. Personally, I like this stuff. This is the Laser Media record solution, and this comes in a very big bottle, and I go through this stuff very, very quickly. So it's good to have a bigger bottle of it. I've had this for about 2 months, and it works awesome. I think you can pick this one up for $16, which is not bad at all for a I don't even know how big this bottle is, but it's a big bottle for a record cleaner. And then, so this will dry it, and it works great. One thing that you will need is they call it a Lazy Susan, which is the cooking thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like a spinning table, basically.
So you can buy one of those, but I just use my old LP60 because I haven't used that in a very long time. So I just use my LP60 to clean my records on. And then another thing is these brushes, and I think you have one on hand.
Yep.
So that is an anti-static brush, and that has that's a little bit different. This is more of a felt velvet brush.
Yeah.
That gets a lot deeper into the grooves than this one does. This is just for a little light clean if you've already cleaned it. I always clean it a little bit with this brush before I'm spinning any records. But yeah, if you're really trying to get deep into the grooves, I would totally recommend that one. And you have an awesome cleaner that I'm hopefully going to get for Christmas. I want you to show the amazing big.
Oh, yeah. I'll show you that. So yeah, I have the Audio Quest anti-static brush. This gets rid of a lot of static, which you don't want because that creates noise. So before every time I play a record, I do this. I'll run this across my record at an angle and then sweep all the static and dust to the side. So this is great. I love my Audio Quest brush. But what I have is a spin clean. And I have to say, Jack's record cleaner is pretty cool. But this is the spin clean. You can buy these vintage or you can buy them new. This one came off of Amazon. And I want to say
it's $80.
$80. Yeah, something like that. And so basically what this is it's a little plastic container, and it's got a lid. And then on the inside, it has two little wheels, and it has a brush on the inside. Now, it comes with a cleaner. You get a big bottle of cleaner, and you just need, the nice thing about that is you only need a tad bit of the cleaner mixed with water. So you're not using a ton of the cleaner. And you just fill it up with a little bit of the cleaner because it's concentrated with water to the line on the inside here of the spin clean, and then you can adjust these. So these little things come out and you can adjust. So like if you're doing a 45, you can put them here. If you're doing a 33, you can put them here, and you rest your record on the little grooves of the spinning wheels here. And then there is on the inside, I don't know if I can get this out. Here it is. There's a little, basically like a brush. And so the water goes in there, and then you're putting your record in between the brush and the water, and you're using the little spin wheels here to clean your record. So you're basically putting it in like this, and then you're just spinning it around in there, and it really does a nice job of cleaning it. Now, the one thing with this that you need once you have this is you need some sort of microfiber cloth to clean it. Yep. To dry it off, because once this comes out of here, it will be pretty wet, and you don't want to put a wet record onto your turntable, obviously. So you need something to clean it and dry it off. And what I use is a Ritz dust cloth. Now, you can buy them from the grocery store. It's a brand that's been around for like 50 years, and it's a yellow cloth. It costs about like $2.40 or something like that. And it's a really nice, it's actually made for dusting, but it's a very nice soft material that's anti-scratch, and it dries the record beautifully. Now, you probably could get like a vac system like Jack. So after you run it through here, the vinyl vac, you could just vacuum all the water off, which would save so much time. But I really love my spin clean. So that is fantastic. And I buy a lot of records from antique shops and use vinyl bins because I love 50s and 60s music primarily. I mean, I love all music, but those are my favorite eras of music to listen to. And some of the records can be pretty grody. So I got to have a way to clean them before I put them on my turntable, because you don't want, like Jack said, you don't want that dust and debris getting on your stylus, because then when you go to play another record, it's going to impact into the grooves, and then it's going to create noise and cracks and pops and static, which you don't want with vinyl. Obviously, the quieter, the better.
Yeah, so like you're saying, with your stylus, you need to clean that as well. And if you're spinning a record and you've cleaned it, you're still going to get a little bit of dust on your stylus. What I have is, you probably buy these for like $5. It's like a little brush, and all you do is just put this up to your stylus and put it down, and it gets all that dust. But you have a very, very cool apparatus called the Zero Dust.
Yeah, I love the Zero Dust. This is about $40, and it is totally worth it. Now, they make off-brand versions of these, and I've never tried them, so I've seen cheaper ones for like $15. I love the Onzo is the brand, Zero Dust. You can see mine's really dirty. It needs to be cleaned, but it has a little magnifying glass here. And then what this is it's like a gel pad that's sticky. And you just put this on your turntable and you lower the needle into it, or you can hold it up to the needle and just very gingerly put the needle inside the sticky part here, and it will remove, as you can see, all of the dust and dirt from the stylus. And then once this gets dirty enough, which mine is at that point, I can actually take it in water and clean it, and it will still remain sticky and good as new, and it will clean out all the dust. And then, of course, it's got the little magnifying part so you can see how dirty it really is. So this is amazing. I do this before every record I play as well, just to make sure that needle is extra clean. So I love my Zero Dust. I think it's amazing, and it's worth the investment.
Yeah, so I think I want to talk about record weights really quickly, because that's very important. If you want to explain it, I'm going to go grab mine because I actually forgot to grab it. But if you want to explain the purpose of it, I'll be right back.
So another thing that I really like is a record weight. And record weights are fantastic because what they do is, if you have a warped record, it's not going to totally fix it, but you can put it down basically on the spindle, the center hole on your record player, and it kind of clamps down onto the record, and it puts just enough pressure, because they're fairly hefty, enough pressure to kind of keep the record as flat as possible. Now, if it's really, really warped, it's really not going to do a whole lot to fix it, but if it's slightly warped, it really does help, and it just keeps that record a little bit flatter, a little bit more centered, and keeps it from moving around. You don't want a lot of extra noise, and you don't want warping and that kind of thing. So the record weights are fabulous for that. This one is really hefty. I love this. It's I don't know the company, but I bought it off of Amazon for, I want to say, around $25. They come in different colors. You can even get some. I have another record weight that actually has a little level in the center, which is really nice. So it's a bubble level. And what that does is, when you put it on your turntable, it will make sure that it's telling you if the turntable is level, which is another thing that's important and why you need isolation feet on your turntable. But I love my record weight, and I pretty much use it for every record I spin, even though it's not all of them are warped. I just think it makes a difference.
Yeah, I also agree. I mean, this one is a it's actually made by Fluance.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so this is just a little guy, not as hefty as yours, but it still makes a difference in warped records. And I think it is important to have if you're buying vintage records and even new records.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten a new record and it's totally warped. I mean, it's like a carnival like game or something. Like it's
I think it's how they're shipped. Like, they're not shipping them well, and they get warped.
Yeah, and people say like 180-gram vinyl helps. I like 180-gram vinyl. I'd personally rather have a heavy vinyl than like a flimsy
like the Dino Flex ones that you could wave in the wind.
So I prefer 180, but I've probably gotten more warped to 180 records than non-180 records, which is just an observation that I've had.
And I like Jack's record weight because mine is a little bit tall. So if you look at the height, mine is a little bit tall. Jack's is a little bit not as high, which is nice, because if you're wanting to put down the dust cover while you're spinning vinyl, I find that my dust cover hits the top of this, and it puts too much force onto the record, which slows down the speed a little bit. So I do have to lift up the dust cover if I'm going to use my record weight. So I like that yours is a little bit thinner, but there's different ones you can buy off of Amazon, and they come in a variety of colors. My favorite color is red, so simply why I bought this one.
Yeah. So again, that one is great, but a bubble level is also a great thing to have because you can make sure your turntable is the level. It's mainly not a problem, but if you are wanting to go the extra mile, I have a separate bubble level that I use for my turntable.
I do too. I have a bubble level, and then, like I said, I have another record weight that has one right in the center. It just helps to make sure everything's level, which is important when you're listening to vinyl. And Cheryl, I do see your comment here. Yes, we talked about turntables. We didn't talk about dual turntables. Yeah. But we did talk about that at the beginning, so you can rewind and go back and check those out. The other thing that I want to bring up, Jack, since we're on the subject of record weights, this came with my record weight. I bought a set, so they're similar. And what this is a 45 adapter. Now, they do come standard with some of your turntables. You'll find they have the little plastic ones. The plastic ones are fine. They work well, but I kind of like the idea of having a metal cone-shaped 45 adapter. They're just really nice. They're sturdy. They're not flimsy, and they're easy to keep by your turntable so that you can listen to 45. So you will need one of these, but most turntables come with them. You can even find vintage 45s with the little 45 adapter, those little plastic ones. In fact, if you've bought from me in one of my vintage live sales, I sign those and put those in as package toppers. I bought like 500 of them from eBay from a guy specifically for that. So they come in all different colors, and sometimes the records will still have them in there, but you definitely need one of these to listen to 45s.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. And I have a metal one that came stock with the Gemini that I bought.
Fantastic. So what other accessories, Jack, do you need when you're getting into vinyl?
So this is very important. The outer and inner sleeves are essential for me, and I didn't get inner sleeves until a very long time ago. I didn't get inner sleeves until I was long into collecting, and I realized that I needed them. Those in particular, I love the MoFi Rice Paper Original Master Recording sleeves. I have the Invest in Vinyl or Square Deal recording sleeves because they're basically a knockoff MoFi and they're much cheaper. And I actually like them better because they're thicker, because the MoFi ones are actually pretty thin.
They are. There.
Yeah, the Square Deal ones are quite thick, and they are dirt cheap. No, I shouldn't say dirt cheap, but they are very cheap. And these are just standard outer sleeves. I don't have too much of a preference on outer sleeves. Personally, I like the ones that aren't breakable with one little crack.
Yeah. You need your poly weight ones.
Yeah. So that's what I have here. These are just the Invest in Vinyl. These come in a pack. You can buy the rice paper inner sleeves and these nice outer sleeves for $20 for 50 of each of them, which I think is a great deal. 50 rice paper inner sleeves for $10. I know Katie can agree that is a great deal.
That's a good deal because mine, I want to say it's like $40 with the MoFi sleeves for 50 of them. It's a little bit more expensive, but I want to talk a little bit about why these are important. So you obviously want to have something on the inside of your record, protecting your record. You don't want to just slide it into the cardboard sleeve because it will get scuffed and scratched. Now, there's debate on the inner sleeves quite a bit in the vinyl community, but I personally feel like the inner sleeves that came with records back in the day, those cardboardy, papery ones, they can scratch your vinyl. And so for me personally and my investment in my vinyl collection, I like these because not only do they prevent scratching, but they're also going to prevent static, which is something you don't want with vinyl because it creates a lot of noise, and noise is enemy of vinyl because you're not really getting to enjoy the music without hearing all this extra background stuff you don't want. So I like these. They're really great. And Jack, I'm going to start probably ordering the ones Jack recommended because they're a whole lot cheaper. So you can look on Amazon for those. I don't with the outer sleeves, and there's different kinds. I don't like the outer sleeves that have the sticky because
I hate those.
They're annoying and they get stuck and they rip your they rip your jacket. So I don't like those. I like the ones that are just thick. They're nice. Like I think these are they do them by plies. This one might be like 3-ply, I think, 3 poly or something like that. So I really like them. They're thicker. The ones that are super thin and chintzy that have the sticky, they're just a pain and they get stuck everywhere.
Yeah, they're quite annoying.
So Cheryl,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I've never heard of that, but you never know what's out there. Might be some interesting research later on.
Okay, so outer sleeves and inner sleeves, I think that's everything.
That's everything you're going to need to have some vinyl accessories to get started into the hobby.
All right, should we talk about some of our favorite records?
Yeah, let's go for it, Jack.
All right, so I'm going to show a few first, and I'm probably going to blow through these because I picked out a lot of them. I don't want to take too much of your guys' time, but the first one is my second favorite Beatles album of all. Oh, I'm big. That's like cool.
Yep, I'm going to make you big, Jack, so you can really pull these off.
This is my second favorite Beatles album. The White Album is my first favorite, but I think that Abbey Road is a must for collecting vinyl. And yeah, this is just an incredible album. Here Comes the Sun is one of the most famous Beatles songs of all time. I think the most listens on Spotify is Here Comes the Sun. And yeah, just an amazing record. Maxwell's Silver Hammer come together, Octopus's Garden, The End, which is an awesome closer. I love that drum fill that Ringo delivers. Just an amazing album by the greatest band of all time, or I should say a lot of people's favorite bands of all time, not my personal. My second one is also a must. This is Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. This is in everyone's top 15 records of all time. I mean, this is amazing. The Chain, Go Your Own Way, Secondhand News, Never Going Back Again, Dreams, just amazing stuff on this guy. And there's just so many different pressings of this record. And you can pretty much find this one pretty cheap wherever you go. And it's just an amazing album. If I'm ever hanging out in the basement at like 9 to 10 or so, I love throwing this record on. It's just, it gives me like a night kind of vibe. I don't know why I've always associated this record with the nighttime, but that's whenever I play this one. I'm going to show a couple more here.
It's funny how music will do that. There's some records that you have a specific time of day that you're just in the mood for.
And it's funny because if I had to choose one morning record, it would be Abbey Road. Because obviously Here Comes the Sun, and I don't know, just a morning vibes. It's weird how your brain kind of does that. Another great one for the night is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Personally, not my favorite Floyd record, but definitely the first one that I would recommend to you on vinyl. Again, these are the square deal sleeves that I was referring to earlier. Awesome sleeves. And yeah, Dark Side of the Moon, Time is my favorite Pink Floyd song of all time, but Animals is my favorite album by them. But yeah, you can really, this is, a lot of people would recommend this is an album to get on vinyl because of the so much stuff is in this, so much noise, if you will. So many different tracks are on this record, and there's a lot of hidden things that you can't hear on a digital recording that you can on a vinyl.
So Susan Houghton has a question here. She's asking, it seems you don't put the record in its sleeve, just its inner sleeve and then its outer sleeve.
Yes. So about that, how I do how I package them, I guess is the right, store them, is the right word. I take the cover. So we have Dark Side of the Moon here. This one is a gatefold. So I take the cover, the original inner sleeve that it came with, and then the record in the inner sleeve. So what I do is I take the record, put it in the outer sleeve. Then I take the original inner sleeve or any inserts that the record comes with. Dark Side of the Moon, I think, came with a poster, but I don't have that with me. And then I put the record in the back. So that is very accessible. And then the outer sleeve goes on top, because if you're putting that on the side, when you're sliding the record in, a lot of times the inner sleeve will, or the outer sleeve will actually kind of like pop out. And that's quite annoying when you have like a bunch of like flimsy like outer sleeves.
Yeah. Now, I don't save the inner sleeve if it's just a plain white sleeve. If it's got some sort of graphic on it, or it's advertising other records, or it has a poster or liner notes, then I add it in. But usually I will just throw those other ones away.
Yeah, and the only reason that I keep them is because if I ever sell a record,
Yeah.
I can just put that right in and save the inner sleeve. That's just a personal preference. But yeah, it doesn't take up too much space, so I do like that.
I'll let you show some more, and I'm going to grab one more record.
Okay. This is an amazing album. This is Black Sabbath's Paranoid. This is my favorite. If you would consider this metal, which I think a lot of people would, this is an incredible record. On the Vertigo Swirl label, this is a fantastic album. We have Paranoid on this one, which is the title track. War Pigs, which is my favorite song on here. Fairies Wear Boots, Rat Salad, Electric Funeral. Obviously, Iron Man is on this one. So this one is just a fantastic one. And there's a lot of reissues that you can pick up. But I like the one on Vertigo because of that awesome label, that iconic swirl label. Another one is Led Zeppelin 4. This is my actually, this is not my favorite Zeppelin album. My favorite Zeppelin album is 2, but the most commercial success they ever had was probably with this album. Black Dog, obviously Stairway to Heaven, The Battle of Evermore, Rock and Roll, When the Levee Breaks. So many good tracks on this one. Led Zeppelin is one of my favorite bands of all time. So yeah, if you're looking to get into them, I would recommend this album because this one had the most commercial success. My favorite is Led Zeppelin 2, though, if you are wondering. Until Katie gets back, I guess I'll just keep showing these. This is Van Halen 1. This was one of my favorite records of all time for a very long time. Eddie passed away, and I listened to this record very, very heavily. And yeah, this is just an incredible album. Ice Cream Man is probably my favorite song on this one. We have Running with the Devil in here, the amazing guitar masterpiece, which is Eruption. Ain't Talking About Love, which has my favorite Van Halen riff of all time. Their cover of the Kinks, You Really Got Me. But yeah, just amazing. This is on the Burbank Warner Brothers label. And yeah, this is an awesome record. Another one is the Who's Next. This comes original with the Decca label, which I love, one of my favorite labels of all time. But yeah, Who's Next? Just an incredible album with Won't Get Fooled Again, which is my favorite track on here, but it also has Baba O'Reilly and some other Who classics. But yeah, this is definitely a great one. Another one is the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. This is an original mono pressing.
Oh, I love that album, Jack.
Yeah, this is an amazing one. Sorry, not original. This is a reissue that they did actually in the Netherlands. My records are like falling out of their crates here. But yeah, this is definitely a great one to pick up. Sloop John B has my favorite bass player of all time, Carol Kay, on it, which is definitely a main reason why I picked this one up. But Wouldn't It Be Nice is probably one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. Pet Sounds is great. There's so many albums by Beach Boys I love. I think Surfing Safari is probably one of my favorites. Great album there.
All right. Do you want to share some of you?
Absolutely. I've got quite a few records here. And I went, the one that I was thinking about while Jack was showing those, and I'm like, how do I not have this in my pile? So I had to go grab it, is Queen. Now, I'm a huge Queen fan, and this is a classic album. This is Night at the Opera. Of course, this features Bohemian Rhapsody. This is probably not my favorite Queen album. Personally, I like Jazz. I like Sheer Heart Attack better. but this is an amazing record. So if you're getting into vinyl, you got to have Queen, and this features Bohemian Rhapsody, which everybody knows and loves. So A Night at the Opera. This is an original press that I was lucky to get in New York. So that was very exciting. Love Queen. I've got a couple of greatest hits albums here. Now, I know that some people feel differently about the compilation albums. I personally like them when you're getting started in the vinyl, because if you don't have a big budget to buy a bunch of these records individually, especially if a band like Queen or Jimmy Buffett or any other band has a large discography, you can start off with just a compilation album and get some of their greatest hits. And one of my favorite albums, it was my first, one of my first albums I bought, is a Billy Joel. I'm a huge Billy Joel fan. I've been fortunate enough to see him twice in concert, one with Elton John. And this is his greatest hits, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This is Piano Man, Say Goodbye to Hollywood, The Stranger, New York State of Mind, My Life, Big Shot, Only the Good Die Young, Still Rock and Roll to Me, Allentown, Goodnight Saigon, Uptown Girl, The Longest Time, The Night Is Still Young. I mean, every Billy Joel classic is on this double LP, and it is just fantastic. Now, I do love Billy Joel's Stranger. That is probably my favorite Billy Joel album, but this definitely is up there for me, and this is pretty easy to find when you're out at record stores. You can buy this used for not very much money, so I really love Billy Joel. Great classic to have in your collection. Speaking of another great pianist, I love Elton John. And Elton John's Greatest Hits is a wonderful album. Now, I love so many Elton John albums. I mean, everything Elton John does to me is fantastic. I love, it's hard to choose, right? What your favorite Elton John album would be. But there's so many, but this Greatest Hits album was actually my mom's. And I think that this is just a great start into vinyl and a really good Elton John album. So this features Your Song, Daniel, Honky Cat, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which is a wonderful Elton John album. Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Rocket Man, Benny and the Jets, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, Crocodile Rock, etc., etc. So this is fantastic. So I love Elton John. I don't know if I could pick a favorite Elton John album. But man, he's just got some great stuff. So that is a really good comp album if you're looking to buy something that's a little bit inexpensive, but a great classic record to own. Another compilation album that I love is Chuck Berry. Now, I'm a huge Chuck Berry fan. I'm very lucky to own a lot of his original presses on vinyl. But this is his 28 Great, and this is Chuck Berry. You can buy this album. It was re-released on Chess Records, and it's a great double LP. So this features, Maybelline, 30 Days, School Days, Rock and Roll Music, Sweet Little 16, Johnny Be Good, Back in the USA, Let It Rock, Bye Bye Johnny, Nadine, I Want to Be Your Driver, Carol, Beautiful Delilah. I mean, just the list goes on of really amazing Chuck Berry hits. Fantastic guitarist, great early rock and roll. You gotta love Chuck Berry, and this is a really, really good compilation album. Another album that I recommend, this is actually the first album I ever owned on vinyl, and I am so excited I can share this with you. This is the Four Seasons. Now, I love Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and this, of course, has become more and more popular. Some of Frankie Valli's stuff has become redone, the Four Seasons stuff recently on TikTok Reels. You've seen them on Instagram. So this album will have a lot of Frankie Valli's and the Four Seasons greatest hits. This has Ragdoll, which is one of my very favorite Frankie Valli songs. They actually performed that for their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame introduction concert, which was great. Bye Bye Baby. Let's see. It's got Let's Hang On, Connie, Sherry, Big Girls Don't Cry, Dawn, Big Man in Town, another favorite of mine, Ronnie, Beggin', Come On Marianne. I mean, this just has all of the greatest hits. This is on Philips. This is the stereo. I don't believe they had a mono version of this record, but I could be wrong. It's just a cool album cover. It's got some great songs, and it sounds good, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money. So this is a very inexpensive record that you can find pretty readily. Jackie,
I am there, yeah.
Okay. Another record, and this was hard for me because I'm a huge Jimmy Buffett fan, and I couldn't decide what Jimmy Buffett album to pick. Now, my favorite is it's between Coconut Telegraph and Off to See the Lizard. But Jimmy Buffett has a huge discography. Some of his early stuff can be really, really good when he was getting into country. But this album I thought was great because it is sort of his greatest hits. So this is his live concert. You had to be there. And this is amazing. There's some posters in here. There's some great pictures. It's a double gatefold, so you get a lot of really cool stuff. And this is not the easiest album to find, I will admit, but it is really, really worth it if you can find it. So this has Havana Daydreamin', Son of a Sailor, Pencil Thin Mustache, Miss You So Badly, Grapefruit Juicy Fruit, Pirate Looks at 40, Dixie Diner. Let's see, Margaritaville's on here. Come Monday, Changes in Latitudes, Changes in Attitudes. Why Don't We Get Drunk? I mean, this is just like the quintessential Jimmy Buffett album. And even though it's a live album, and some people say live does not sound as good, I have to say this sounds pretty good, and it's just a fun listening experience. So if you love Jimmy Buffett, You Had to Be There is a great album. Now, I've got just a few more here. I'm a huge fan of Frank Sinatra, and I think a lot of people would consider Frank Sinatra just such great classic music to have in your collection because it's easy listening. You know, you can throw this on and just kind of relax for a little. To me, Frank Sinatra is sort of my Sunday morning, I'm having coffee, I'm listening to Frank Sinatra kind of thing. Or maybe in the evenings and I'm having a nice cool drink and just chilling out with some music. So he kind of goes both morning and evening for me. But I love this album, Come Fly With Me. Fantastic Frank Sinatra album. I would say that Frank Sinatra definitely did a lot of concept albums before they were really considered concept albums or popular. And this is one. I mean, it just takes you on a whole journey. It's amazing. So Come Fly With Me, Frank Sinatra. Highly recommend that. Any Frank Sinatra album you're going to get is great, but I recommend that. I also love Sam Cooke. I think everybody loves Sam Cooke. This is just an amazing compilation album. This is the legendary Sam Cooke. Now, there are lots of Sam Cooke comps, but this is my favorite, the legendary Sam Cooke. It actually has 3 albums in this, and it's got You Send Me, Good News, Having a Party, Teenage Sonata, Summertime, Cupid, Everybody Loves to Cha Cha Cha. Let's see, Chain Gang is on here, Frankie and Johnny. I mean, just some amazing Sam Cooke classics. So this is a really good album you can pick up for not much money, and you get 3 albums with some great music on it. So I love legendary Sam Cooke. What label is this on? Candlelight Music. So it's a reissue, but it's just fantastic. And the last album that I want to show is Boston. I grew up listening to a lot of Boston because of my dad. This is their self-titled album. This has More Than a Feeling, Rock and Roll Band, Foreplay, Long Time, Hitch a Ride. This is a reissue. I do not have an original of this. It came on blue vinyl, 180 gram blue vinyl, but you can pick this up on Amazon or at your local record store. It's really a cool kind of colored variant here. And I just say that this is a great album. So you can't go wrong with some classic Boston. So those are my picks for albums if you're just getting started in the vinyl and you want to find some music to go along with your brand new turntable.
Yeah, I definitely, I have a few more. Yeah, I love that Boston album that you showed, and I didn't pick that, so I'm glad that you showed that. But I have a couple more. The first one is The Doors' self-titled amazing album. We got Break 'Em Through on here, Soul Kitchen, The End. Incredible songs on this record. The Crystal Ship is probably my favorite on here, and the iconic Light My Fire is also featured on this record. Comes on that classic gold Elektra label, and I love this record. You can get reissues of this pretty cheaply. In particular, we didn't talk much about Analog Productions or MoFi, any of that stuff. But you can pick this up on an Analog Productions pressing for $50, I think, and they sound incredible. I've listened to one of those actually at Double Decker Records, and yeah, that is awesome.
No, Cheryl, I believe the original Boston album is on standard black vinyl. Is that right?
Yeah. That's just a color variant. Is that there was a Walmart one that was around on blue vinyl, so I don't know if that one was it. But
I don't know. This one I bought off of Amazon. It came. It's on the Epic label. 180 gram blue vinyl. So I don't know if that's the Walmart variant or not. You'll find different variants at different stores. Of course, I always say go support your local record store, before you go to some of your big box places. But they were running a lightning deal, and so that's how I ended up with that record.
Yeah. People Are Strange, Proud American is a great Doors song. That's one of my favorites. Strange Days is just an incredible album. Another one, a funk classic, is Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life. I absolutely love this record. And I think you were talking about these 45 adapters earlier.
Yep, exactly.
In those. But yeah, this record is fantastic. We got Sir Duke on here, which is my favorite Stevie Wonder song. Just so many classics on this one. That's a great one to pick up. A prog classic is Supertramp's Breakfast in America. This, again, vinyl-wise, this is an album that you must own because of all the secret things that you don't hear on the digital recording. There's just so much information in the grooves on this record. I'm in love with Supertramp. So Breakfast in America is a great one. Another great one by Supertramp is Crime of the Century. I love Supertramp. This is Rush Moving Pictures, my favorite album.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic.
We got Red Barchetta on here, which is my favorite Rush song, Tom Sawyer, YYZ, Limelight, Witch Hunt, Vital Signs, and The Camera Eye. Almost forgot the track list of my favorite album. So the Rush Rush Moving Pictures is an amazing album. This is the reissue that was done direct metal mastered in 2015 on 180 gram vinyl. All these reissues by the Rush campaign sound fantastic. So totally recommend Moving Pictures. Another great one is we're getting into some jazz territory here. I have Miles Davis Kind of Blue back there. I think I forgot to pull that one out. But another great one is A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. This is when John Coltrane went into more spiritual jazz territory, which I love a lot. There's some vocals on here, which is quite different for some Coltrane hard bop fans. But yeah, this is an incredible album. This is a Target exclusive on Black and Swirl vinyl.
That's a pretty cool vinyl.
This is a sister pressing to the Analog Productions. So the acoustic Verve reissue of this record is actually a sister plate to this record, and this one sounds fantastic. It's a little warped, though, so again, this record weight will help a lot on this record, but Coltrane, amazing jazz performer. And my favorite John Coltrane album is Giant Steps, but I think A Love Supreme is definitely a classic. Here's my favorite jazz album of all time. We got Soul Station by the legendary Hank Mobley. This is a Blue Note 75 series. Just an incredible record. We got Wynton Kelly, Paul Chambers, and the amazing Art Blakey on drums. Hank Mobley is probably one of my favorite jazz performers of all time.
That Blue Note stuff is just incredible.
Yeah. And actually, Lee Morgan's The Sidewinder is also a fantastic one. The Cooker, all that stuff is awesome. If you are looking to learn more about jazz, there's some awesome Netflix documentaries. There's one about Lee Morgan called I Called Him Morgan, which is all about his tragic death. His wife actually shot him in the head, which is definitely not a great way to go. But yeah, just an incredible trumpet player. I love Donald Byrd as well. Chant is one of my favorite albums. Bird in Flight is also fantastic. But yeah, just an amazing album. So Lee Morgan, check out that documentary. That's an awesome one. And there's one about Miles Davis that I can't remember the name of that, but you can just search Miles Davis on Netflix and that should come up.
Fantastic, Jack. Do you have any more albums before we jump into the Christmas?
Yes, I have 3 more or 4 more, something like that.
And it's hard. I tell you, when I was compiling this list, I was like, this is classic. This is classic. What am I going to show here? Because I wanted to just pull everything out of my record cabinet.
This is Acdc's Back in Black. I'm not a huge Acdc fan. I think I've said that a ton of times on my channel. I have a Gibson SG, which I guess is sacrilegious to say that you're not an AC/DC fan and own an SG. But this is a fantastic album. We got Hell's Bells on here. You Shook Me All Night Long, which is my favorite AC/DC song, the title track, Give a Dog a Bone, Shoot to Thrill, incredible songs on this album. So yeah, you can usually find these pretty cheap as well. So that's a great one. Another one by my second favorite band of all time is Cheap Trick. This is Cheap Trick at Budokan, which is an essential for any record collection. My favorite live album of all time. And yeah, there's actually a full, complete concert version that I would totally recommend. Those are getting harder and harder to find, but just the originals sound fantastic as well. Hello There is amazing. I love that opener. I've seen Cheap Trick live twice, and I've loved him all the times. Thank you so much. So yeah, this one is awesome. Big Eyes is great. Need Your Love. The B side is actually better than the A side, in my opinion. We got Surrender. I Want You to Want Me. Good Night Now. Clock Strikes 10. Bunny's amazing guitars. Bunny's amazing drum solo near the Lookout / Big Eyes section. Just an incredible band that I absolutely love. And the last one is Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. I'm not a huge 80s pop fan, but if I were to recommend an album from that period, it would 100% be this one. Shout is an awesome song, and recently I've been listening to Everybody Wants to Rule the World on repeat. This is an incredible album that I actually sold the first time it was in my hands because I inherited my grandmother's collection, and this was one that was in her collection, and I sold it because I wasn't aware of how amazing this album was. And I finally picked up another copy at a yard sale for $3, and this is in great condition. Yes, Waiting for Columbus is an amazing record. I have that in my shelves. I love Little Feat, such an underrated band. Yes, I am a musician. I play drums, bass, and guitar. So yeah.
Fantastic. Those are some great albums, Jack, that you recommended.
Yeah.
I did want to say, because there's so many, and this was, like I said, hard to choose. But if I had to pick a favorite Elton John album, I guess it would be Captain Fantastic. So I'll also recommend that one. I'll throw that one in to the ring as well, because that's a fantastic, fantastic album. So we've each picked some Christmas albums that we wanted to show to recommend, since the Christmas season is coming up, and these would be great gifts. So Jack, why don't you kick us off with your favorite Christmas albums?
Okay, I'm going to show two. How many do you have?
I have two.
All right, so I'll show two, and then you'll show your two. My favorite Christmas album of all time is Billy Idol's Happy Holidays. I'm a huge Billy Idol fan, and one that I should have probably showed on my favorite albums list is Rebel Yell. That's a fantastic album, but this is not your usual Billy Idol record. This was actually just released this year on vinyl. It was recorded in 2004, but the vinyl reissue was released this year. This is on a great indie exclusive white vinyl, and this is a fantastic sort of jazzy, Bing Crosby kind of Dean Martin holiday record. The track list on here has some great Christmas classics like "Oh Christmas Tree," Frosty the Snowman, Silver Bells, Let It Snow, Winter Wonderland, Run Rudolph Run. So this one is just an amazing record. If you haven't heard this is my favorite holiday record, and I would so recommend it. It's got some great kind of jazz guitar work on it by Steve Stevens. Just amazing stuff. And then another great Christmas album is Cheap Trick's Christmas Christmas. This is as 8 Vinyl Low, Emma from 8 Vinyl Low put it. This is not your grandfather's Christmas album. I just love that saying. And yeah, this is This is a rockin' Christmas album, and yeah, I'm a true fan of this Cheap Trick 2017 released Christmas album.
And I love 8 Vinyl Low's channel. She's got some great content.
Also a fellow huge Cheap Trick fan too, which is always a plus.
Yeah, and she loves blues, particularly British blues. So I enjoy that content. Tiger just put in your link. So guys, again, if you are not subscribed to Jack, please go subscribe. He just hit his 1,000 subscribers today on the stream, which is so exciting. And he really is so knowledgeable and has some great music in his collection. So make sure you tune into that. Cheryl Ross is saying my favorite Christmas album is The Blind Boys of Alabama.
I don't think I've heard of that. I'll have to check that one out.
I'm going to have to check that out too, because I'm not familiar with that. Now, I've got two Christmas albums here, and of course, this one is probably no surprise to all of you. I'm a huge Bing Crosby fan, and I love Merry Christmas. This is, to me, just the quintessential Christmas album. Bing's voice is amazing on here. It's kind of that 40s, jazzy Christmas that I just absolutely adore. There are so many artists from that time period that did some amazing Christmas albums, but Bing Crosby's Merry Christmas is amazing. I was very lucky to get an original press of this on the Decca label, the silver Decca label, from my grandparents. They had this in a box and they didn't even know that they had it. So I was lucky to find this in there. They also had a stereo reissue of it. So I have two copies of this now, which is amazing. But you can find the stereo reissue for a very good price. The original is going to be a little bit harder to track down. But this is a great album. So it's got Silent Night. It's got, of course, Bing Crosby's White Christmas, which was originally released on 78. And then this kind of got compiled, I believe, I don't know when this album came out. 1940 something or 50 something. I don't know. I have to go back and look it up. Anyway, this has White Christmas on it. God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. I'll Be Home for Christmas. Jingle Bells. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. My favorite song in the entire world of Christmas, Silver Bells, is on here. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Mele Maka, and so many others. So this is a great Bing Crosby album. Merry Christmas. Love that. Another album that I just absolutely love for Christmas. This is the Beach Boys Christmas. This is so good because it has Little Saint Nick on it, which I love. So this is a fantastic album. I was really lucky to get an original press on the Capitol label of this recently. This one is a little harder to track down as well, in good condition for an original copy, but you can find reissues of this very easily online for just a couple of bucks. This has Little Saint Nick, The Man with All the Toys, Frosty the Snowman, We Three Kings of Orientar, Blue Christmas, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Old Lang Syne, I'll Be Home for Christmas, and so many other great songs. So this is just a fantastic album to own. So those are my two Christmas picks, but really you can't go wrong with anything from the 40s and 50s. Some of that jazzy Christmas is just amazing.
Yeah, and for anyone wondering, the date on the Bing Crosby, that was released in 1945.
Okay, 44. Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember what the date on that was.
That's awesome.
I knew the White Christmas album, the 78 had come out earlier, and then that was compiled and released later. I just couldn't remember the date. So thank you for looking that up. Yeah, Blue Christmas is good by Elvis too.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you on the jazzy Christmas kind of feel. That's definitely what I lean toward when I'm listening to some Christmas songs.
Yeah, but there's so much music out there, folks. It's just fun to just go to your local record store, pick up an album, and play it and see what it is and see if you like it, because you can just discover some really great music that way.
Another great one, and it was just on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember what it is now. Oh yes, Vince Guaraldi Trio's Charlie Brown Christmas. Amazing stuff on that one.
Amazing album. I also love Alabama's Christmas. It has Tennessee Christmas on it, which is one of my favorite non-carols. I just adore that album. So I've got that as well. And then I've got, of course, your Andy Williams, your Perry Como, the Pied Pipers are fantastic. I mean, you just can't go wrong with some of that early Christmas music. It's just, to me, it reminds me of driving to see Christmas lights with my dad growing up, and we'd always have that on.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, guys, do you have any other questions? You can put them in the chat and we'll answer them. Let's see. Cheryl Ross is saying the blind boys got together when they were children, sent away because they were blind, not a very nice orphanage. They sang together as a coup, and now they have passed away. The remaining are in their 80s now. Wow.
That's a great story. I'll have to check them out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Snoopy. We got to love Snoopy. And all of that is amazing. Oh, Bluegrass Christmas. Now, I can't say I've listened to a lot of Bluegrass Christmas. Have you, Jack?
I don't think I have.
Any other albums that you'd recommend? Because there's so many. I'm going through the list and I'm like, I didn't even scratch the surface of albums that I love.
Yeah. So Christmas albums are just...
Well, any albums.
ZZ Top's Eliminator.
Yeah.
Is I would totally recommend. Not my favorite ZZ Top album, but one that had the most commercial success. Led Zeppelin 2 is my favorite Led Zeppelin album. If we're getting deeper into hard rock and kind of power pop, they don't really blend together too well, but those are two of my favorite genres. Nas, that was a group formed by Todd Rundgren, who's one of my favorite guitar players, and his band Nas was incredible. Their self-titled album is amazing. And then Head Over Heels is amazing. There's a band called Dust. So yeah, if we're getting like real, maybe we should do like a whole thing, like a deep dive into different genres. And I would talk so much about so much different music, but
we should do that, Jack. That maybe will be our next stream.
Yeah, that'd be a cool one. Art Play He's Moanin', one of my favorite jazz albums of all time. But yeah.
There's a lot of good jazz music out there, and that's a whole nother topic that is amazing. So that is something that we could explore as well in a future video. So I think that covers everything, Jack, that we want to talk about today. If there's any other questions in the chat, we can answer them, but you can always reach out to Jack over on Instagram at Jack's Tracks Records. And do you have an email, Jack, in your description box of your videos?
Yep, it's jackstracksrecords@gmail.com. And then there's a bunch of stuff in my description. So if you go check out one of my videos, just go to the description. I have a whole thing at the bottom. My Instagram, my Facebook. We got Jack's Tracks contest, which I talked a little bit about earlier, where I enter some different vinyl community contests. What else is there? There's a Google form where you can enter some of your ideas for a video that you'd like to see from my channel. So I always check those every month or so. I go through the list and see what I would want to make a video. So if you're ever looking to see something from my channel, just fill out that Google form. My Discogs, which you can check my entire collection and just see what I'm getting in and stuff, which is always fun to see. But yeah,
that's something I need to do is put all of my records on Discogs. I've not done that yet.
That was not something I initially did, and that is something that I did about a couple months ago.
Yeah, that is on my list. I just reorganized my records and I got them all alphabetical, which they weren't before. I don't know why I never did that before. I just was putting records away by the artist title with a card. And it was really becoming hard to find the stuff in my collection. So I'm really glad I got it all alphabetized. But then I just got a bunch of new records in. So that's going to be a weekend project for me, is getting the rest of that all together. But Jack, it was awesome having you on the stream. Congrats on 1,000. That's just amazing. So definitely go subscribe, watch Jack's content. The one that he just did on Record Store Day was fabulous. There's a great video he put out on some of his picks for Record Store Day, Black Friday. And there's lots of other great videos on his channel. So check him out as well. And of course, you can always email me. My email is in the description box, as well as my Instagram. I'm vintage_and_vinyl over on Instagram. So you can always message me with questions as well. And we will both be available for that. And then I will link the other stream we were talking about in the description box, as well as some of the record players and other gear you might want to buy or put on your Christmas wish list if you're just getting into vinyl and you want to get a turntable. So I hope this helped you guys so much. I really had fun putting it together and working with Jack on this. I think it was great. And we will do more streams in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. I hope, as always, folks, that you will stay in, stay safe, and binge YouTube. See you next time. Bye-bye.